What's up everyone, it's Wizard101 back here with another Wiz video, and today I just want to share tips and tricks that I think every player could use, whether you're a new player just starting at Unicorn Way or a more seasoned player. I hope that this video can be very helpful to anyone watching, and I hope I say a few things that you don't know already. The video will include about 20 tips in total, ranging from jewels to pets to just quality of life. Before we get started, I just want to say that 90% of you watching are not subscribed, so consider leaving a like or a sub for content like this in the future, as it really helps with the channel, and consider joining the Discord below. With all that being said, let's get right into the video. The first and probably most basic tip is to save your training points. A lot of people try dual school early game, which is not a good idea until you get weaving at least, and it really doesn't work with the way stats are in the game in earlier levels. I once trained a meteor on a death when I first started playing, and that was a very bad idea. The damage didn't scale with my character at all, and it ended up being a complete waste. Instead, you should invest your points you'd use for making a secondary school early game into training spells from either life, ice, or death. Many people advise training up to Satyr for life, Tower Shield for ice, and Feint for death, with Feint being the most important spell, as it's the spell you'll be using for 99% of the game. Personally, I only train Feint, but there are definitely benefits from training up Satyr and Tower Shield as well. If you did waste your training points though, you shouldn't worry, because if you remember, there is a free training point buyback that happens every few weeks. The next tip is to get enchant TCs at an early level. Enchants are cards you could use on other cards to increase their flat damage. They really help you out early game doing damage and speeding up the questing process, but you technically can't train them up until Celestia. However, there is actually a way to get these enchants at an early level through treasure cards. In order to get these TCs, you should go into Housing Wizard City and go to the Arcanum apartment. There you can access the Arcanum and buy TCs from Librarian Fitzhugh himself. I'll actually have tips on how you acquire the gold you need later in the video to acquire these TCs. The next tip is that there are certain mounts in the game that you can buy for gold as opposed to crowns. The cheapest one is the Chestnut Pony, going for 50,000 gold, and there are many more ranging from that price of 50,000 to 100,000 gold. If you just want a mount for the speed boost and don't really care about cosmetics or anything, it's a really good idea to just buy the gold mount, as they're just as good as most of the crowns ones. To access this option, be sure to select the gold over the crowns tab while in the crowns shop. Tip number 4 is to always sell back to the bazaar. The bazaar always gives you much more gold back when compared to quick sell, especially when it comes to jewels. Now jewels can actually give you so much gold, so it's always really good practice to go to the bazaar and sell your items when your backpack is getting filled up. This will help you get gold for aforementioned TCs, mounts, and help you a lot with pet making, which is very important for the game. Tip number 5 is to always keep a low amount of cards in your deck in order to have the best chance to pull what you need. For pretty much all mob fights and a lot of boss fights, you only need 7 cards, usually consisting of a buff or 2, a 7-pip AoE, a 4-pip AoE, an enchant or 2, and maybe a feint if it's a boss. Early game, when you don't have your 7-pip, you could keep 2 4-pip AoEs or a single target spell. Honestly, you should be able to kill most enemies in the game with a 7-card deck. I've seen a lot of people just starting out who make the mistake of packing way too many cards on their decks, which ultimately leads to fights being longer and them potentially not pulling what they need and dying because of it. There are definitely harder bosses though in later worlds, and for that I recommend potentially going to 12 to 14 cards for some extra buffs, but the point still stands that you don't really need a deck with a lot of cards to play the game, and you should be in a better place pulling what you need with a smaller deck of cards. Tip number 6 is to start gardening and get couch potatoes for mega snacks. Couch potatoes and evil magma peas are the best plants in the game by far, and gardening is the best way to get snacks which you need for pets. The most common way to farm couch potatoes are the Gulchers and Mirage, but there's also an option to farm them in Grizzlehiem, albeit with a much worse drop rate. I encourage players to have someone port them to Mirage so they can farm the Gulchers. They have low HP and aren't very strong, so they're easy to farm. You should be gardening in the Red Bard farm as well, as plants have likes that make them grow faster, and this house is one of them. Tip number 7 kind of ties into tip number 6, but is to make a 69 plot. A 69 plot is basically a large plot that you make by using advanced placement and housing. It makes it so you can be really efficient with energy by only using a few gardening spells to watch over up to 69 crops in one go. Almost every experienced player has one of these. It would take a while for me to show you how to make one of these myself, but if you're interested in making one of these, there's a step-by-step tutorial by Tosion that I'll link in the description of this video. Tip number 8 is to keep up with your astral quests. Spells like Epic, Sharpened Blade, and Potent Trap require you to do astral quest lines to obtain these cards, and are very relevant to the game. Your first quest will be in Celestia, then you do the Astral Weeks questline in Zafaria and revive the obelisks there. And last but not least, you need to do the Star and Sun School quests in Azteca to receive Sharpened Blade and Potent Trap. You start the Zafaria questlines with Nyanga White Stripes, and you start the Azteca questlines with we call Red Mask, and you get the spells themselves from these obelisks. Sharpened Blade adds onto buffs like Blades, adding 10% to the blade and making it stackable with another blade, and Pollen Trap does the same thing but with traps like Feints. Tip number 9 is to play Grub Guardian. Grub Guardian is a tower defense mobile game by KA where you could purchase maps, and one of the maps you purchase and play on, called Pegasus Palace, it gives you rewards in-game which players use for easy access to energy elixirs, otherwise known as EEs. The game itself is pretty easy and quick to play, and you can earn a lot of EEs this way, which is very nice for pet training as the cost of them really piles up over time as you do a lot of pet training, especially if you do advanced content, and raiding can also be very expensive when it comes to energy, so if you plan on doing raids, it's basically a requirement. It's also really cost effective if you don't like spending a lot of money on games. It doesn't take a lot of crowns to get started, so honestly I would 100% recommend doing Grub Guardian. Tip number 10 is to pay attention to the big dungeons in the game and the notifications you get by Cyrus Strait. There are a few major dungeons that aren't a part of the main questline, but they're very important to get gear from in order to quest smoothly throughout the game. The non-mainline dungeons you should pay attention to are Mount Olympus at level 30, Wallaru at level 60, and Darkmoor at level 100. There are more than these 3, but these 3 are the most important ones and will help you greatly with questing throughout the game. One thing I've noticed with Darkmoor is that people actually confuse the tier 3 with tier 1 gear a lot because they're not aware that there are tiers in the first place. There are different tiers for Darkmoor gear, and tier 1 is the best one that will be flashed on the screen. I feel like if KI did a better job at clarifying this in game, it would be a lot better, but if you're new to the game and watching this video now, you should know the difference. Tip number 11 is to learn about jewels and unlocking sockets. This is more for late game players, but I still see people wandering around Novus and Wallaru without enough pierce or just no jewel socket at all. On items like your ring near theme, you will have these jewel sockets where you can put certain jewels in. Circles for damage and pierce, tier is for health and some item cards, square is for health and flat resist, and triangle is for accuracy and power pip. The most important for PvE in later worlds is the pierce jewels, which are in the circle sockets. You can get them through farming the 40 Thieves in Mirage or crafting them with a recipe. Tip number 12 ties into tip number 11, and that in order to unlock these sockets, you need socket wrenches or crowns. The best way to farm socket wrenches free to play is farming Crash the Bandicoot in Wallaru, but there are also options in Selenopolis. The drop rate is low for both, but I've gotten a lot of them from Crash over time. The next few tips are going to be about pets, so just be aware of that. Tip number 13 is to make either a triple double pet or a quint damage pet. A triple double pet is a pet with 3 damage talents like Myth Dealer, Pain Giver, and Myth Giver, with 2 resist talents like Spell Proof and Spell Defy. And a quint damage pet has those 3 damage talents along with Pain Bringer and Myth Boon, all depending on your school of course for the damage talents. Usually you want one of these pets to have Mighty 2. It's best practice to manifest Mighty as opposed to socketing a jewel for it, as it's much easier to get dealer jewels or boon jewels as opposed to Mighty. Tip number 14 loosely relates to tip number 13 as it's related to pet hatching, but you should always try to hatch a pet in person as opposed to in the kiosk, as the average hatching cost in the kiosk is 90 to 100,000 gold, while hatching in person will usually cost you around 30 to 50,000 gold. Tip number 15 is yet again something related to pets, and that is to wait until member events in order to train pets, as double pet XP happens very often, at least once every month, and it makes training pets so much easier. Assuming you did Grub Guardian, save a lot of EEs, and you harvested a lot of couch potatoes, you would be in amazing shape to make any pet you'd want during double pet XP. Training pets regularly is very inefficient in comparison, and overall you are investing a lot more resources by not waiting to train the pet. Tip number 16 is another thing that saves energy with pets, and that is having energy gear when training pets. Energy gear basically gives you more energy, and people usually equip it before logging off. You can get these sets in a variety of free-to-play ways, with a good way being farming Mirror Lake and Zafaria for the Splendid attire. There are other better sets you can get for free as well though, and for that I'll link a video by Zafa in the description. Tip number 17 is to stock up on and save empowers. Empowers are very valuable when sold in the bazaar, and a lot of players buy them when they're at the gold cap as to kind of store their gold as they sell back to the bazaar for a lot of gold as well. There are also external communities in Discord such as Game and Trading Posts that allow you to trade certain amounts of empowers for things like energy elixirs, P9s, or even membership elixirs. I'm not directly endorsing Game as Trading Post, but they're definitely an option for players who want to do some type of trading, and contrary to popular belief, they do actually have their own moderation in order to help prevent scamming, but as always, join at your own discretion. Tip number 18 is just to use in-game features to get to places more quickly. For example, you could use the Crown Shop with the membership genie to teleport to the shopping district from anywhere, making it very fast to get to the bazaar. You can also do similar things with the Friendly Players feature. Number 19 is to get your 4th potion in Khrysalis. Potions are things that refill your mana and health, and they're very commonly used to save time where you don't have to go grab wisps. You get 3 of these by just playing the main quest line, but there is a 4th potion you get from an NPC in Khrysalis called Avalon Ghost Dust. To get the potion, you first need to meet Sultana the Mirror Mask in Bastion to get her side quest message in a bottle, and then you talk to Avalon to receive your 4th potion. Tip number 20 is to just join a guild. If you're looking for communities to join in-game, guilds are a very good way to find people who know a lot about the game. A lot of guild houses also have tapestries to places like the arena, the bazaar, all that good stuff to save you a little bit of time. You also do all types of things with guilds even if you don't raid, but if you do want to raid, finding a guild is a very important step. Overall, guilds are just a very cool aspect of the game. The best way to find one is the guilds channel in the official Wizard101 Discord server. A lot of guilds have both raiding guilds and casual guilds, so just pay attention to the posts to see which ones they have. With all that being said, that's it for the video today. I hope y'all enjoyed watching, and if any of y'all found any of these tips helpful or you just found the video enjoyable in general, please leave a like or a sub. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.